This is LA's first.
Live from Los Angeles, welcome to the Dr. Erin Show. We're all about manifestation, transformation, and breakthroughs. It's time to claim your birthright of prosperity, vitality, and love. So grab your tea or coffee because together we're awakening the world. May you live your truth. Did you know that according to New York Times, only around 25% of American adults cite they have a clear sense of purpose about what makes their lives meaningful? So if you're somebody that is desiring to truly know your purpose and calling, this podcast is for you. Welcome to the Dr. Erin podcast. We come together to know the truth, live on spiritual principle, and align with universal law. We truly believe that when somebody awakens, they have a gift and message to bring to the world, and together we're awakening the world. We come together in New Thought, Global, and Society, truly coming to bring truth to the world. So we're in a series, a trauma series, podcast series. Today is all about how trauma relates to birthing your purpose and calling. So Viktor Frankl was the man who wrote the book, Man's Search for Meaning. It was actually written about the concentration camps with the Nazis and the Jews. And what he found was he would witness people coming into the camps. And I believe the stats were something like only 1 out of 29 people survived going into the concentration camps. And what he found, because obviously he survived, he found that it was the meaning that people placed on their lives that had them survive or not. He would watch them come in, and they first would be, completely in shock over being put in the camp. And then they would go to apathy, really not even caring, and slowly they would die. He truly believed that it wasn't actually lack of food or water or anything like that had majority of people die. It was actually the lack of purpose. And so today, I want to break down how trauma births your purpose. It's actually probably one thing that really distinguishes the E4 trauma method over other trauma processes is the birthing of someone's purpose and calling, really birthing the legacy that someone wants to leave in this lifetime. So personally, as you guys know, my story of the hardest thing I ever went through was having a stillborn son at the age of 22, a full-term stillborn son. And the blessing that came out of that was that traumatic incident gave me my life. It gave me the breakdown for me to seek truth, for me to truly seek and take decades of becoming the person I am to now the Dr. Divinity and somebody who's touched hundreds of thousands of lives and somebody who has brought E4 trauma method to the world and helping bring New Thought movement further along. So I truly give gratitude for that traumatic incident. And if it weren't for that and weren't for doing the trauma work and neutralizing that incident around having a stillborn, taking the trauma and minusing the emotions and birthing the wisdom. And the wisdom that came out of that for me was really my commitment, my core commitment to bringing spiritual awakening and truth to the world, recognizing that we are spiritual beings and we've gotten so lost in the construct of the programming of the lies that we're told through the breakdown of our culture collectively. So I want to actually break down a couple of client cases and things to help you understand how you can birth your purpose and calling and legacy out of doing your trauma work. Transform your trauma, transform your life. So one of the most amazing, beautiful things I get to witness is taking clients through E4 trauma method and watching them not only release the energy that's in their body, the emotions, all that, but really come to a neutral stance of as-ising whatever occurred or did not occur in the traumatic incident, but also being able to have them spot their commands, being able to see what limited beliefs and limited identity they decided in that high state of a traumatic incident, of high state of emotions that impinged upon their subconscious mind and really has been playing out like puppet strings in their life. And when you see a client actually come to the epiphany that they created that limited belief, and that limited belief has been playing out in their life in so many ways, that it actually restores their power in an instant, because they recognize that right in that moment, understand that they created their own limitations, they created their own bondage, they created their own suffering, that they actually did that in the decision that they made about themselves is actually the moment that they actually restore their power And they actually have a light that kind of comes on, that they realize that if they could create that relative experience, they also are that powerful to create something new in their life. And we know that we don't go through anything just to go through it. Everything is a divine appointment. Everything's a masterclass in life. And trauma is one of those things that is a divine appointment for us to experience something so that we can be the change that we want to see in the world. We are your universal law. Universal law is not outside of you. Universal law brings things back to order. It brings things back. So whatever's on your DNA track, whatever trauma is there, that is yours to heal, to reveal the highest version of yourself. So let me bring in the first client. Obviously, again, I change the names of clients for their own confidentiality. So Steph actually is somebody that came to me. She had a lot of trauma. We began to go into her E4 trauma method, and you never know which one is the hardest trauma of someone's life. Generally, you don't go to the most difficult trauma of someone's life. Usually, you'll start with some smaller ones, and then when they're ready, their consciousness will let you know that they're ready for their deep, deep, big traumas, the big T's, right? So one of her big T's, her big traumas, was her mother actually abused her physically. And there was an actual incident where her mother was actually had her down like in a ball in the corner and was actually hitting her. And in that moment, Steph decided that life isn't safe. And so what happened with Steph is she began to overeat, really to stay safe, to have an actual physical guard of her body, to stay safe from people, having them kind of like make sure she was always divided and alone at some level. And this command, life isn't safe, played out in her life for a very long time. She began to realize and declare that she not only wanted to begin to heal from overeating, and she kind of already had begun to do some of it. She had begun to educate herself on food and began to get, lose a little of the weight. But it wasn't until she actually did this trauma work that she was actually able to really lose the final weight that made her actually feel really healthy. And that, but what was really the most important thing is that she birthed the wisdom out of the traumatic incident. She birthed that life is safe, that she can never be touched by anyone or anything because she is the untouchable. She's divine. She is the presence. She is the power. And then even though her mother beat her physically, she knew that her mother still loved her, and that she knew that she was doing it out of her own pain and suffering and abuse. And so her purpose began to be, Steph's purpose was, what is the most difficult thing you've ever gone through, right? So she began to recognize that this was the most difficult thing she'd ever gone through. So she actually, her entire career came out of this, which her mission statement was, I help women who overeat claim their freedom by discovering their purpose. So what she began to do was develop a business that was helping women who overeat really do their own inner trauma work, claiming their freedom through different processes by discovering their purpose. She really found that when people found their purpose, that their problems like overeating would go away. The obsessions, the addiction, the this or that would go away because their energy was focused on a heart-driven purpose and calling and legacy. So Steph today is doing extremely well. And the point is that through our hardest times, our hardest traumas, there comes wisdom and there comes a calling and a purpose out of that. So next case is that I like to bring in other cases that are not just people that are struggling how we think they're struggling. I think that our culture has, quote, quote, what looks successful and what doesn't look successful. And oftentimes the people that you think are successful have a lot of trauma and are having their, quote, quote, success out of trying to be enough and out of a limited command as well. So the next case study, Natalie. Natalie's father was an alcoholic. And what happened with Natalie is she had a lot of traumatic incidences with her father when she was young. Her mother was kind of very passive, and her father would get very drunk and abusive, mostly verbally. So Natalie she decided that she would control. I'll show you. That was her command. In the middle of a drunken stupor with her father, he was screaming at her, telling her how stupid and how worthless she was, and under her breath. And she said aloud as well, I'll show you. And she decided, out of a limited belief, out of a division, I'll show you, making him wrong, making her right. And this played out in Natalie's life for a very long time. She did show him, and she did show the world. She actually built a multiple seven-figure business and was having great, quote, quote, success. But what happened is she kept having legal battles over and over again to prove, I'll show you. And in fact, she won every case of the legal battles, but it was always a battle because she had to keep that identity of, I'll show you. And so as she came in and began to work with me doing the E4 trauma method, she began to realize how much she had been driven and motivated by, by that command and by proving herself. And really it was out of feeling not worthy enough at a core level. So what happened with Natalie is she didn't change her business much. She just pivoted it. And instead of helping women create businesses that are just driven on getting money and material, she began to pivot her business to helping women really find their authentic business and heart-based businesses, bringing them to the world. She just became a lot softer. She became somebody that was available for love. She became somebody who was available to not have to control everybody and everything. So her marriage got better because she wasn't always trying to control everything all the time. So Natalie became somebody that was really open in the heart and recognized that who she thought she needed to be to show people that she was enough, that she was success, was actually the one thing that was having her not feel enough. And so the point is that through our traumas, we birth our purpose. We birth our true purpose, our true authentic purpose and calling, and we be the change that we want to see in this world and leave our legacy. And so just like Viktor Frankl said, he said that he basically barely even made his book. He actually left the Nazi camps and had his book, or I think after, he had it somewhere like hidden because it barely made it through. He didn't have anything, right? And he realized that this was the one thing, that bringing meaning to the world was really his thing. He said the meaning of life is to help others find the meaning of their life. That became his meaning, because he knew that finding his meaning was his greatest trauma and his greatest, strength. It was, he really turned, as we say, turn your mess into your message, turn your suffering into your strength, turn your pain into your purpose. He said that he who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. He describes poignantly those prisoners in those Nazi camps who gave up on life. He had lost all hope for a future and were inevitably first to die. So they died less from lack of food and medicine than from lack of hope, lack of something to live for. And so today, that book is a very famous book. And I recognize that you have a book to write. Your life is your greatest story. Your life is your greatest book. That within you, whatever traumas you've been through in this lifetime or in your lineage, that it's not in vain. It's not for nothing. That you've been through the suffering that you've been through because there's a divine appointment that you called in for yourself to wake up and neutralize it and complete those cycles in your DNA to free up the highest expression of your DNA, the highest expression of your soul through form, spirit, through your individualized soul. And so I just say yes to you healing your trauma, yes to you transforming and transmuting that energy for the inspired action, for that purpose, for that calling, for that wisdom, for that takeaway, for the breakthrough, for everything that came out of that awful traumatic moment, that we transform it to recognize that's the greatest blessing of our life. Whether you've been raped, whether you have been molested, whether you have been beaten, whether you were just bullied on the playground, whether you have had racism or discrimination or a moment of a breakup or whatever your deepest, hardest trauma is, take the time to first heal other trauma and go to that place. Know that if you have pain in your heart, it will hurt your body. You will have symptoms. You have to do your inner work to transform, to break through, and knowing that there's a purpose in it. Some of the greatest leaders, I would say all of the greatest leaders, they turned their trauma into their triumph. Look at Nelson Mandela. Look at all the great, all of it. Look at Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey went from being, a woman that was African American, that was discriminated against, that was, overweight. There was all these things. And she handed it over to her purpose, recognizing that all of her pain and suffering was not going to be used for nothing. She has more conviction and love and strength and leadership for the world because of her traumas, because of the molestation, because of the rape, because of all that. And I just say, thank you for the suffering. Thank you for the trauma. Thank you for all of that, because without that, I would never be the woman that I am today. So on that note, if you're ready to do your trauma work and you're ready to heal yourself, or maybe you're ready and want to get trained in E4 trauma method or in True Triangle, or become a certified coach with us, please reach out. You can reach out on social media. It's drerin.tv, DRERIN.tv. Or you can also go to newthoughtglobal.com and check us out over there. Okay. Have a beautiful day, and may you live your truth.